Humphreys. I work as a cinematographer, or probably better known in Australia, director of photography, shooting television commercials, documentaries, feature films, TV shows, and basically anything to do with a camera. So I did communications and I really enjoyed the film and TV side of communications degree, so I kind of went down that path. Well, I did the communications degree at what's now called UTS in Sydney, and there's a film and TV course there, and I graduated in the early 1980s, and I basically have done nothing but work in the film and TV industry since then. I've never had another job. I've never had a real job, as they say. I've never had a full-time job. It's always been freelance. It's always been job to job. Yeah, so what's that? That's 30-something years of, and you know, over time got better and better, and here I am. The film and TV industry is very much a relationship-based industry, and it's super important to nurture and develop relationships. That's what it's all about. So formal training is a good way to meet people. So, you know, some people say you don't really need to go to university to study to be a filmmaker, and I would agree that's true to a certain extent. You can learn on the job. Like you can come in as I have to keep coming back to my department, which is the camera department. You can come in as a young assistant who, first of all, would volunteer to run cables and plug stuff in and carry stuff and just do all that kind of legwork, learning stuff, and that's great. And then if you're good and enthusiastic and people like you, and it's very important, exceptionally important to like work really hard and kind of impress the people around you, they will get you back. And they will give you a better job next time and a better paid job. And so you'll work your way through the system and you'll get to be a camera assistant, and then you'll become a camera operator, and then you'll become a DP, and you do that by meeting people and working with people. But the drawback I find with that apprenticeship-based side of the film industry is you learn other people's methods, and you kind of get locked into the way the people that you work with did things. So you're not exposed to a lot of different ideas. So, you know, if you happen to be apprenticed or working with a really boring cinematographer, then it's going to be very difficult for you to learn the tools to be better. I don't know how to say that. Whereas the university, the tertiary-based system, it may take you longer to do, but I think it opens your mind up to more interesting possibilities in cinematography and filmmaking. And going back to my days at university, we watched so many movies. We watched thousands of films, and we wrote about them, we talked about them, and I've found that knowledge of film has been so valuable over the years, because you know, directors or producers or writers or whoever would say, have you seen that film? Have you seen Apocalypse Now? Have you seen The Thin Red Line? Have you seen The Godfather? Have you seen all? And they go, I really want my film to be like The Godfather. I want it dark, I want it moody. And I go, oh, I've seen that film, you know, I've seen that film a lot of times. But if you come up through the ranks, there's not, unless you're so self-motivated, you don't have that kind of access to history of cinema. So I really support the idea of doing a tertiary degree in being a filmmaker. Like, that's my personal thing. And I also think going to university, you meet a lot of like-minded people. So you'll meet, if you want to be a cinematographer, you will meet directors, you'll meet writers, you'll meet other people, and you can create creative teams with them, which over the years can be really useful, you know, and hopefully they'll go places and you'll go places. And I kind of came out of university and went, hey, how do I get a job? And I tried to get a job in an existing company, which at that stage was only the ABC and Film Australia, which were these two kind of government employers that employed graduates from university. But they wanted you to almost start again and do an apprenticeship and almost retrain, which was fine, but I kind of was a bit more ambitious than that. So what I did way back then was, and what I'd suggest anyone who wants to get into the industry, you just have to do it. You have to make films. And what I did back as like a 22-year-old or whatever I was, I had a lot of friends who were musicians, who were in rock and roll bands, and I made lots of music videos. That was my kind of entrance into the world of film. And when I was at university, there was one particular director who I teamed up with who was exceptionally ambitious and very talented, and he was making music videos for quite big bands, like, I know you guys probably don't ever heard of these bands, but Mental as Anything and Midnight Oil and Died Pretty, I don't know if you remember them, and The Saints and Ed Cooper from Brisbane and the Triffids and all these kind of 80s seminal rock bands. And we started making music videos for them when I was a very young 24-year-old cameraman. So it was a bit of a roller coaster ride for the first few years, and what I did and what I suggest to anyone trying to get into our business is you just have to work. You have to accept every job that gets offered to you, no matter how mundane, like film a wedding or make a corporate video for your dad's construction company or whatever it might be. You just got to do it. It's a very challenging career. The most rewarding thing is working with different people all the time. So, these days I mainly shoot TV shows, and every show is a different group of creative people. So a different director and different writers and different actors. So every new job is like a new challenge with it's a new story every single time. And my job as a cameraman, as a DP, is to take a script, which is often sent to me through the post or email or whatever it is nowadays, and I have to convert that text into a movie, into a visual, into pictures, basically. So the greatest challenge is like working with those directors and their vision, and the producer and their vision, and the actors and their input, and then combining everyone, because everyone kind of comes through the camera department, and turning everyone's ideas into pictures. And that's the most exciting thing about cinematography. It just changes so fast. I can't even predict where it'll go. Like, I'm sure because of the whole post-COVID world, I think cinemas are going to lose their luster. I think the big blockbusters that needed huge releases in cinemas is not going to be a thing in the future. I think most films will go out on streaming platforms, from now on. And the problem with that is there won't be a need for a $100 million film anymore, because the $100 million film will be on the same streaming platform like Netflix as a $1 million film, and people are just going to not notice the difference, So I think there'll be more streaming, there'll be less theatrical work. Physically, the equipment that you use will probably get smaller and more easy to use, and more diverse. The crew that are required is not going to change. There's probably going to be new roles like digital technicians, and the post-production side of things will change radically, which is the editing and the sound, and I think that'll all change. But I think the structure, like the DPs and directors and writers and actors and producers, that'll be with us for a long time yet. Perseverance and just never, I think, I'm the head of my department, which means the whole camera department on a film set I control. And on a big American show, that can be up to 200 people. So it's a big job, and I have no problem with people texting, or not texting, but writing me letters or ringing me up and asking for jobs, or, you know, like, I think perseverance is everything. So if I'm looking for crew for a new show, and I've got this CV that someone sent me saying I really want to get into the business, and I've looked at it and I file it wherever. And then if they ring me or they say, did you get that perseverance and that, because then if I'm looking for someone, I'll go, oh, I've heard of that name. So don't be afraid to write to people, don't be afraid to ring people, don't be afraid to send CVs out, and don't be afraid to do it again. So, because again, if I'm looking for crew for a new show, say I've got everyone for that one, and then the next one comes along, and if you haven't sent out another CV or rung me again, I'm going to just forget, and there'll be a whole bunch of other people. You've just got to persevere, and don't be afraid to, like, hassle. You know, you've got to be a bit of a hassler. I mean, there's a borderline, and that's up to you to work out where that borderline is, where hassling becomes annoying. But you've got to find that thing.